Testing. All right, let's see what's going on here. Let me open up my YouTube real quick. Just make sure we're live. Looks like we're live. I'm assuming everything's going well on Periscope and Dlive as well. You can catch this show on all three platforms. I also upload the audio formatted version to the podcasting platform. So Spotify, iTunes, iHeartRadio, all that good stuff. You can catch this show. So we're going to be talking about a few different things in this video. Real quick to kind of start out with, this is a chart of the SPY. This is a 4-hour chart of the S&P 500. As you can see, I mean, the last couple of weeks, last couple of days, we kind of made a high, but we weren't able to break the high from September 1st. So in my opinion, this is definitely a weak signal. We talked about in my other video about Dow theory and the Dow divergence, where basically the transportation averages were above the Dow industrial averages, and that's also a very weak and bearish sign. There's some other things we're going to be talking about in this video when it pertains to the dollar, right? We've got the U.S. deficit just surging, just every day, more trillions of dollars, more money printing, and we're in a deficit of $3.1 trillion. And the Democrats especially, but you know, on both sides, it looks like they want to spend even more money. And so, you know, our dollar's definitely becoming less and less valuable. There was a specific article I had that I'm looking for here. We're going to be talking about the job market, right? Let's see. I had it in here somewhere. But we're going to be talking about the job market because along with our dollar, you know, becoming more and more debased and devalued, we're also losing tons of jobs. Not only just because of the, I guess, the aftershock of the shutdowns and the pandemic, but we also have automation. Now, I'm starting to think that they're using the lockdowns as sort of an excuse to, you know, obviously get rid of a lot of jobs, especially here in the United States. We're losing like 1 million jobs a week. But I think the lockdowns and the pandemic in general is sort of just like a cover for what was already happening. Like the automation, it's coming in quick. You can see it even at, I was at a CVS pharmacy. They have self-checkout now at CVS pharmacy. So, I mean, this is, you know, there are huge technological changes that are coming. Not to mention, right, we've got this Bitcoin PayPal news. I definitely want to hit this story because I actually got on the waiting list, right? Because I do still have a PayPal account. And so they are going to be offering cryptocurrency services, Bitcoin services, right? You'll be able to buy Bitcoin, Ethereum, and you'll be able to pay for things, right? So this is huge for Bitcoin. Bitcoin, I think, last I checked, it was, I think, almost at 1,300 or 13,000, I'm sorry. It's like a couple $100 away from, maybe $300 away from 13,000. Which is, it's a high that Bitcoin hasn't seen since probably 2019, if I remember correctly. But the point is that now you are going to be able to buy stuff with Bitcoin, right? When people say, oh, you can't buy anything with Bitcoin anymore. Well, and I'm one of those people, right? That's kind of been sort of my, I guess, hesitancy to get into cryptocurrencies. It's because you can't really spend it, right? You can hold it, but it's kind of hard to spend it. Well, now with PayPal offering the Bitcoin program service, it's going to be very easy to use Bitcoin and buy pretty much whatever you need. Now, that doesn't mean that, you know, PayPal obviously is very dangerous. So I don't want to, like, quote unquote, sell this or pitch this to my audience without talking about the drawbacks and the downside, because PayPal definitely censors purchases. PayPal can even confiscate your funds and just ban you from their platform. Okay, that has definitely happened to lots of people. And, you know, we've talked about that on the channel before. So it's very dangerous, right? To think that PayPal has gotten the, you know, and their track record really isn't the most honest, right? There's not a lot of transparency. I remember being locked out of my PayPal account. I could still buy things with my card, but I was locked out of my PayPal account for over a year. And I called them, I called them every few months trying to work it out. And, they would always tell me, oh, well, it's automatic. The security is automatic. There's nothing we can do. But, finally, after about a year going back and forth with them, I was able to get back into my account. So if I do hold a little bit of crypto on PayPal, it's not going to be a whole lot, but, you never know, right? It could be, very beneficial to have some of this stuff, at least a little bit, on something as easy to use as PayPal, right? I'm aware that there are hardware wallets out there. You really should, if you're going to get into crypto, right? Everybody says that you should get a hardware wallet and actually download your crypto coins and put them on the wallet, because unless you do, you don't really own it. I'm aware of all that, but this, idea of PayPal sort of middlemaning it and making it easy to buy and sell using cryptocurrencies and trade that way, well, you never know. It could be beneficial, and maybe this is exactly where they want us to go. Let me make sure I'm not using any extra internet here. I'm going to close out of this. Don't need that. Really don't need that either. So, yeah, there's a lot going on. I made a video yesterday about silver, right? Making my first silver purchases. Definitely want to get into the heavy metal. So, I think as I acquire more capital, just in general, diversifying it into several different areas, stocks, long-term trading, options trading, even though, it's very high risk, it's, can be very rewarding if you can figure out how to do it. Heavy metals, cryptocurrency eventually. But, you've got a lot of people out there, right? Let's just look at the SPY real quick. The SPY, it wants to rally. Like, people want to rally these prices, but there are heavy amounts of supply. There are big sellers that are preventing this market from going any further, right? It could be the banks, could be the central banks, could be the hedge funds. But we know this market is heavily manipulated, right? We're in an economic depression that we haven't seen the likes of in 100 years almost. This is probably going to be one of the most devastating, financial events in all of history, right? We're looking at potentially a complete just economic collapse of the old, and something new is going to have to rise up out of the ashes, right? I think that's why central banks now are talking about actually putting out some sort of digital dollar, right? We talked about the central bank digital coins, the CBDCs. China's central bank is already doing this kind of thing. The Fed Chairman Jerome Powell talked about this on Monday at the event for the International Monetary Fund. So things are changing very quickly. But going back to the stock market, the stock market is heavily influenced by the Fed. It's heavily influenced by a lot of the what could be called bad economic policies are right now, and it's propped up, right? This is kind of like fake money. I enjoy it. I love trading, don't get me wrong, but it's kind of like, it's fake money, all right? So be very careful, right? Just know that I'm not in the stock market without the awareness that this could go down at any point in time. And what I'm doing right now personally is I'm buying this, right? I'm buying AT&T. AT&T at almost $26, like 26. It almost got down to 26. It was like 26.55 or something, I think was the lowest price, right? It's been a very long time, probably since March that AT&T has been this low. AT&T as a company, I think, is stable. It's got a very stable dividend, and it's going to be around into the era of 5G, right? This is what I'm buying. I'm not buying Facebook. Let me show you Facebook. I'm not buying Facebook at almost $300 freaking dollars right now. I'm not buying MSFT, Microsoft, at over $200. I think it's actually Microsoft that is trading like 7 times their forward earnings. So, I mean, this is absolutely crazy. These markets are absolutely crazy. And this is a very dangerous time to have money in the stock market. But that being said, there are a lot of investors out there that actually think Biden, it's this leftist media too that's kind of putting this stuff out, right? I think it's like wishful thinking on their part, but they think that Biden is going to win against Trump. And because of that, they think it's possible that Biden will win, the Democrats will win the House and the Senate. And what they're hoping for is that sort of blue wave to happen, and then a very big stimulus package getting passed after Biden's inaugurated, or Kamala Harris, whatever. And, this is literally what they're talking about. I mean, I have this quote from an article. This is absolutely ridiculous. This is some, leftist fund manager, capital manager. And he says this, he says, quote, "The most optimistic stimulus story is the blue wave stimulus story. Biden gets the White House, the Senate turns Democrat, and boom, we unlock $4 trillion to $5 trillion of spending in 2021, right? Like, we haven't spent enough trillion this year, or for the next 2 decades. He says, related to stimulus, some of the Biden initiatives on infrastructure, green energy, and things like that. So, I mean, just listen to how insane this really is. We've already spent trillions of dollars. The Democrats want to spend another 5, 6, 7, 8 trillion. Just add it to the tab. This is completely unsustainable. I think most people realize where this is going. Whether it's the central banks or, the government, they are going to make us pay for all this spending, right? And we're going to pay in our purchasing power. Our purchasing power is going to diminish. It already has diminished for decades now, right? A dollar bill would have gotten you a lot further 50 years ago than it does now. And that trend is only going to continue. So you have a lot of these, I'd call them kind of left-wing people in the media, maybe investors as well, that are hoping for some sort of Biden blue wave. I don't think that's going to happen. In fact, I think it could get this bad. All right. I think the elections, this is possibility. And I heard this articulated on Simiogog's channel. Fantastic channel. You guys should definitely go watch some of those live streams that Oliver does with Tim. They were talking about how, well, if the election gets contested, right, Democrats could just say, oh, well, Trump's cheating. We're not going to, we're going to contest this. We're not going to submit defeat, right? We're not going to admit that Trump won. The Democrats could just point fingers at Trump, say that he cheated, and we could have this huge election controversy. And then what happens after that? Perhaps Biden drops out, right? Just drops out from his candidacy, and they install either Kamala or a combination of Kamala and somebody else to take over and sort of, I guess, battle their way potentially to the White House, or at least try to, fundamentally stop a lot of the things that Trump is doing. I think this is going to be absolutely the most insane election that anybody could possibly imagine. Its effect on the markets is going to be crazy. I mean, you can just see within a day sometimes we get these really kind of wild swings. Lately, we've had, some down days, but I think if when you look at the S&P 500, right, the fact that our latest high that we've now declined from was not even able to make it to the same highs that we saw in September, right? This could be a sign that this election is really going to kind of fuck up this market. And some people say, don't bet against the Fed. Don't bet against the Fed. Don't bet against the bull market. But eventually, you would think if this stock market, if the S&P 500 is really propped up by the Fed, let's look at the SPY. I was still at on MS. On Microsoft, but Microsoft follows the S&P pretty closely, so the charts do look similar. The thing is even if this market is propped up by the Federal Reserve, eventually the market's not going to respond to Trump the way that it does, and eventually the market may not respond to stimulus or stimulus news. They're basically propping up the stock market right now on this stimulus stuff, right? Hoping that Biden wins and that they get a $5 trillion stimulus package. Well, let's say that does happen. How long is that going to last, right? How many months or years would that possibly carry us to a new high? It's simply unsustainable. So that's why I'm buying cheaper stocks, really good companies, right? Look at ExxonMobil, another fantastic company. They're going to be around long after I'm dead, and they've been around a lot longer than I've been alive. So, hell, I'm going to get in this at $33 a share. But what I'm not going to do is buy overpriced tech stocks that are being marketed to millennials for probably some particular reason. And when we read, going back to this quote, this capital manager about, talking about Biden, he says, quote, "The most optimistic stimulus story is the blue wave stimulus story. Biden gets the White House, the Senate turns Democrat, and boom, we unlock $4 trillion to $5 trillion in spending." I mean, this is madness. These are the people that are in charge of our monetary system. These are the people that, a lot of people say that Jerome Powell is a genius. Maybe he is kind of a mad, twisted genius in his own way. I mean, obviously these people are managing entire economies, but I just don't see how this is sustainable. We got to talk about the dollar, right? The stock market is doing well also because the dollar is doing so poorly, right? The dollar is trading at its lowest level since sometime last year. I think it was like January or February. It was this low. The dollar is not doing good, guys. And this is, it's kind of hard to explain. None of us are financial experts, but you can understand what it would mean if a gallon of milk no longer costs $2 or $3. It was, $10 or more than that, right? Or if gas, instead of being like $2 or $3, was $10, $15 a gallon. And here's the other thing you got to consider too, right? With these energy companies like ExxonMobil, just any of them, Chevron. Imagine a situation where, the oil right now, there's too much supply, but imagine, that's why these companies are trading so low and gas is so cheap. But imagine a situation where oil supply decreases, right? And it becomes more expensive. These are the companies that are going to shut everything down, and they're going to be like, listen, we want what we want. You're going to give us the deal that we want, and then we'll supply we'll supply you with energy. We'll turn the lights back on, sort of thing. Just imagine how unpopular these companies are right now, but 10 years from now, when energy becomes scarce and all these, big left-wing governments tried to go green and it didn't really work out. We know that's probably what's going to happen because of the way California is going. These are going to be the companies that, they're going to be king, right? In some ways. And I do think oil within our lifetimes is going to become more expensive by the barrel at the gas pump. And these companies like Exxon and Chevron, they're going to see some kind of resurgence, probably sooner than later, right? We got to get through some of these oil reserves, but as soon as energy becomes a political issue, those are the companies that are really going to win, right? Facebook doesn't supply the society with energy, unfortunately. They have a lot of data, and yes, in some ways, data could be the next gold. But oil is going to be very, very important, and it's like a concrete, hard asset, right? Or it's like it's tangible, right? Obviously, it's not hard, but it's tangible. The entire monetary system, as we've already established in this stream, seems to be taking us down a very dark road. The central banks, I think, are very interested in going cashless. This is why I'm stacking. Okay, Bitcoin is braced for a bombshell from Fed Chairman Jerome Powell. Jerome Powell, as I said, spoke on Monday. This was a very important meeting. It was a press release for the International Monetary Fund. And Jerome Powell talked about how they are very interested in digital tokens, digital coins, digitizing the dollar, having the dollar be exclusively like an online payment system. Now, they sort of say, well, we don't want to replace cash. We want to supplement, right, cash. We want to kind of complement cash with this new online payment system. But I think that's just a ruse. It seems like society, too, and really does want to go cashless. But the problem is that if you don't have any hard asset, then the money really you don't actually like have it, right? It's got to be tangible. And something could happen in my trading account. I got like about $1,100 in this trading account right now. Something could happen and I wake up tomorrow and it's at zero. And they tell me, oh, there was a hacking, or oh, China did this, or oh, there was some sort of glitch, right? Oops, sorry. All right, these kind of things could happen. The banks, there could be a bank run, right? Maybe you have 1,000, 5,000, 10,000 in one bank. Maybe there's riots, right? Maybe there's riots. The bank shut down. You can't get your money out. And I think eventually this is where it's going to, is where you're going to go to the bank and they're going to tell you, well, we can't give you cash, but we'll give you this digital card, or you can download our central bank app, and you can use your money digitally, right? You can buy things on PayPal, right? This is where I think they want to take us. And the fact that Jerome Powell is talking about cryptocurrencies and talking about, cashless payment systems at the International Monetary Fund, well, that's a pretty good signal, right? People think this is a game. They think, oh, this is not, but one of these days we're going to wake up and they're going to tell us we can't withdraw cash. So that's why I'm stacking. I'm even stacking dollar bills, right? If I find a dollar bill that's like kind of old, maybe from the 80s or something, I'll just stash it away, because at least for a little while it could be worth something. But I'm putting away like cool quarters that I find, copper pennies as well. I'm going to start hoarding copper pennies like no tomorrow, buying physical metals like silver and gold, all of this stuff, having food, having water, all of this could be very, very, very important. And you got to understand, if there was a grid down situation, I don't want to be all doom and gloom, right? And when at the end of the night, we give it up to God. God is the one who's guiding us. We turn our will and our lives over to the care of God. But at the same time, faith without works is dead. And in a grid down type of situation, an EMP attack, bank runs, whatever, right? The electricity is out in California. People are actually experiencing no electricity for weeks on end, right? So these kind of conditions are coming to America. It would be best to be prepared for that kind of thing. With the jobs too, the labor market is not the same labor market that a lot of us grew up in, right? The labor market that most of us know is completely been obliterated. It just doesn't exist anymore, right? This is an article from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And, they talk about how a lot of the money that was supposed to go to Pennsylvania businesses in the Paycheck Protection Program and all of these, this stimulus money, well, a lot of it never made it to small business America. Most of the money just went to the same usual suspects. The other, the reason is because to apply for a lot of this stuff and to actually get it, like the mortgage forbearance, right? You can apply for mortgage forbearance and maybe buy yourself another 6 months. But if you don't know how to do that, you're getting kicked out of your apartment. You're getting kicked out of your home. So they make all of this stuff supposedly available, but they don't educate the public on how they can take advantage of certain programs. The people who know about this, right? These are the people who are already in the know. They're already, in the corporate world a lot of the times. And that's what this article really talks about. Here's a quote from the president of the Greater Pittsburgh Chamber of Commerce. He says, businesses crave certainty. And with all this uncertainty right now with the election, with, when the economy is going to open up again, when the injection's going to be ready, businesses are not going to be able to function much longer at 25% capacity, 50% capacity. We are looking at an economic calamity that is just going to devastate all of our lives, our standard of living, and our income and our opportunities. And that's why, right, every single day is an opportunity to learn a new skill, to acquire a new skill, acquire more wealth, and to just set yourself up in the best possible way. I mean, walking closer with God than you ever have. All of these things are things that I'm doing, and I am preparing for the next 10, 20, 30 years of severe economic depression. After the crash of 29, the stock market didn't recover until about 1960. So it took over 30 years for the stock market to fully recover. And, we'll see where this goes, but how long can the Fed keep this up? How long will they keep it up willingly, right? Before they just completely, purposefully, right, intentionally debase the dollar. When it comes to the stimulus, like I said, I think they're trying to prop up the stock market just on the hype of stimulus. Right? This is all they got right now, guys. All they got is the hype of the stimulus program. I mean, this is sad, but it's real, and the downfall is going to be violent. There's going to be violence in the streets. We're going to see riots after the election. The Democrats are going to say that Trump cheated. Like, all of this stuff is going to have huge consequences, not to mention all the people that are going to be homeless, all the people that are behind on their rent, behind on their car payments. I mean, there is so much going on out there. In California, I saw footage the other day. California, with just hundreds and thousands of cars out there just sitting in lots because nobody's traveling, nobody's renting them. This is so severe. And the mainstream media, what do? They spin this crap. They want you to think that, well, as long as the weekly jobless claims is under 1 million, we're doing good. 1 million jobs a week are leaving the United States. You probably know somebody, if not yourself, who has been unemployed for a very, very long time. You probably know someone who's hustling and doing side gigs and doesn't actually have one particular job. They are hustling multiple sources of income for themselves. You probably know someone who is, has roommates, sleeping on somebody's couch, maybe a family that has several generations living together. This is this is what they're packing us into, right? So we're in a lot of trouble. Right? The old American economy is gone. It's just gone. Like, it's not doom and gloom. It's not negative. This is just the reality of it. And, the automation, right? The 85 million jobs, according to CNN, and it's probably going to be more than that, are going to be gone very quickly because the pandemic is, just conveniently speeding up automation, right? As the headline reads from CNN Business. The pandemic is speeding up automation, and conveniently, may I say. And 85 million jobs are on the line. And it's probably more than that. I mean, how many? I think it's like 40 or 50 million jobs have been lost since all of this started. This is very bad, guys. Very bad. And the economy you can't turn it back on the way you turned it off, right? It's much easier for governments to lock things down and ruin the economic landscape in our country. It's much easier for them to do that than it is to create jobs. And then with the airlines, the other danger you have is nationalization of these industries. Now imagine when the airline companies are owned by the government and the government controls, air travel. These things are going to become realities in our lifetime. And you still have McConnell, Trump, and Pelosi dangling the idea of a $1,200 check, when really, I mean, this is it should be the least of our concerns, whether or not we're getting a $1,200 check. People are saving that check. There was another article I had here. This is from the Digital Market News, but according to this outlet, people did save their checks, right? People spent it on the stock market, or they still have it in savings. People were doing responsible things. Americans were doing responsible things with their checks. But there's this line in here that should be very concerning. And I think this is, I think culturally, this is what's kind of marketed to Americans, to sort of spend their money. But they say right here, non-whites spent far less on non-essentials than others. The poorer and unemployed section used this money on bare essentials and continue to do so with no guarantee of a stimulus check round 2. We have a lot of groups in this country that are very upset, right? They're very upset with the police. They're very upset with Trump. They're very upset with the status quo, and rightly so. Okay. But, just imagine this situation where wealth inequality and the gap between the rich and the poor, the financial gap between different groups. This is a ticking time bomb. They want us to sort of pay attention, or they want us thinking that the rich aren't paying their fair share, and we need to take money from this other group to pay for all these other people. And the government's basically scamming us into thinking this way. Places like Chicago, for instance, the rich, a lot of the upper class is leaving Chicago. They're leaving Los Angeles because those cities are starting to attack them. They're running out of tax revenues because of all this economic shutdown. Especially, they're running out of tax revenues. So now they're coming after the people that they can tax. Well, those people are just going to move. And it just appears that our governments are completely out of control, and they'll send you a check, but they want you to spend it, right? They want you to spend it on nothing. What's the point? The point is to prop up this consumerist economy, if only for another few months. If they can prop up the consumerism for another 6 months with these bullshit ass checks, they're going to go for it. And unfortunately, Trump could be in on this too, because he wants to look good. He wants people to think that his economy is doing well. Trump's economy is going to absolute shit. Like, at least he had the stock market, but now the stock market is completely manipulated. It's pretty much the Fed, the big banks propping this thing up. They're selling these overpriced stocks, overpriced tech stocks to millennials, right? While I suspect a lot of hedge fund managers and capital managers are going into, more blue chip, old school, quality value plays, and you have this move towards cashless. It's just all starting to add up in a way that where the central banks have complete control, where maybe the central banks and the government in coordination have complete control over everything that you purchase, over every dollar that you make, every dollar that you earn, every dollar that you spend, every dollar that you save. They have complete control over that. Which is another reason to try to become, our own central banks outside of that system by stacking hard assets, maybe putting some money away in the digital currencies. You could have a situation where countries that are broke and bankrupt, they might start relying on something like Bitcoin as a reserve currency, right? And that would be very bullish. But regardless, I think the election, just the catastrophe of 2020 and 2021, you got the U.S. deficit, more than $3.1 trillion this year. All of this stuff is going to be bullish for hard assets, going to be bullish for food. It's going to be bullish for all of that, stuff that's been around for thousands and thousands of years. The debt issue too, I didn't even get to that, but I mean, everybody's in debt. Everybody's got student loan debt, medical bills. The states are in debt. The cities are in debt. The country's in debt. Where do you think it's going? I've been talking a lot in this podcast, but where do you think it's going? It's kind of a rhetorical question, but if you're on the YouTube channel or the Twitter feed, comment down below and let me know what you think. Automation, right? Cashless societies, government lockdown, small business America gone, the stock market trading higher as the U.S. dollar continues to plummet. Where do you believe all of this is going? I think 2021 is going to come around. The new year is going to come around, and it's going to be another bad year, guys. And, we have to sort of realize that without being too pessimistic, right? Because I guess this stream was kind of pessimistic, but kind of getting away from that, we have to realize that all of the markets and all of the economies, they have cycles, right? There's a cycle to the gold market. There's a cycle to the oil price. There's a cycle to the stock market. There's a cycle to the bond market. So we just kind of drew a shit card, right? We drew a bad hand. We were born at a time where we have to face all of this. We're going into a new age, right? You could get into the esoteric. We're moving from the age of Pisces to the age of Aquarius, right? It's going to take like another 2,100 years. But, there's a lot of things that are so much bigger than us, and we really just have to rely on God. We got to give it up to God. We got to walk with God, walk closer with God as you ever have, because that is your number one asset, is God himself. And, just try to be aware. A lot of this political drama, this political noise and stuff, I know people like it. People like it when I talk about it, but it really is a lot of distracting nonsense. The future is going to look very bleak for people that are not aware of what's going on, right? And that are not preparing today to buy some security for tomorrow. And there's so many different ways that you can do that. Like I said, learning new skills. I'm doing a little gardening. I'm doing a little trading. I'm buying some precious metals. I'm getting more involved in my church. There's lots of things that you can do to set yourself up for, a much better deal in the future. And we got to play with the cards we got, right? We have to. We've got low oil prices right now, low prices on the oil stocks, right? There's opportunity out there. This mortgage forbearance thing, it's going to be very, very sad. Many people are going to get kicked out of their homes, but there's going to be opportunity there as well. So we can't live in la la land, right? That's the last thing I'll say. We can't live in la la land. We can't allow the media to spin this economic, propaganda where they want us to think everything's okay, V-shaped recovery, when we're really headed towards, a 20-year-long economic depression. We just can't live in la la land. We have to live in the reality. But rejoice. Praise God. Praise God for another gift, another day. And I will see you all soon. Follow me on social media. Links are in the description down below. Big shout out to my patrons. Thanks for supporting the channel. And as always, this is CMC Broadcasting. I'll see you next time. God bless.